What does it say about our society when a 16-year-old girl can't even walk through a park without fear, when hatred, obsession, and cruelty converge into a crime so brutal that it shocks an entire nation? This is the story of Brianna Ghey, a teenager who had her whole future ahead of her, a young girl who loved fashion, makeup, and making TikTok videos. Someone who wanted nothing more than to be accepted for who she truly was. But instead of being remembered only for her laughter and her vibrant personality, Brianna's name became a symbol of something darker: violence against the vulnerable, the dangers of manipulation, and the devastating consequences of unchecked hatred. This is the horrific murder of Brianna Ghey. Brianna Ghey was born in 2006 in Warrington, Cheshire, England. From a young age, she stood out for her bright personality. She loved fashion, loved chatting with friends, and had a playful sense of humor. Brianna was also a transgender girl, a fact that shaped both her joys and her struggles. Transitioning as a teenager is never easy, and Brianna had to navigate bullying, cruel comments, and the exhausting effort of trying to fit in. But despite the challenges, she embraced her identity. Her TikTok page became a place where she expressed herself through dance videos, styling outfits, and chatting to her growing number of followers. She began to find confidence in her own skin. Her family and close friends described her as funny, kind, and fiercely loyal. She dreamed of becoming a beauty influencer and building a career in the fashion world. She was also deeply caring, always ready to defend her friends and check in on people who were struggling. At just 16, Brianna was building the foundation of a life full of promise. No one could have imagined that it would all be stolen in such a brutal way. It was Saturday, February 11th, 2023. The day started like any other. Brianna left home with plans to meet up with friends, excited for a normal weekend. That afternoon, she walked toward Linear Park in Colchester, a quiet tree-lined area of Warrington where families often strolled and children played. But waiting for her were two people she believed were friends, a 15-year-old girl and a 15-year-old boy. Behind their friendly faces, however, was something far more sinister, something Brianna couldn't possibly have predicted. These teenagers had spent weeks planning something horrifying. Through private messages, they fantasized about killing, discussed weapons, and talked about how they might lure someone to their deaths. To them, Brianna wasn't just a classmate. She was a target, chosen with chilling deliberation. At around 3:13 p.m., in the middle of the park, the attack began. Brianna was stabbed 28 times with a hunting knife. Her cries for help echoed through the trees, but no one reached her in time. Within minutes, the life of a 16-year-old girl, full of dreams and promise, was gone. Joggers discovered her body shortly after, lying on the path in broad daylight, her life cruelly extinguished. What should have been an ordinary weekend became a nightmare that stunned not only her family, but the entire country. When police arrived, they began piecing together the final hours of Brianna's life. Witness statements quickly pointed to the two teenagers she had met that day. Both were arrested within 24 hours, their calmness contrasting sharply with the brutality of the crime. The suspects shocked investigators. They were just 15 years old, a boy named Eddie Ratcliffe, later unmasked after the trial, and a girl named Scarlett Jenkinson. Both came from seemingly ordinary families, attended school like anyone else, and had no prior violent records. Neither fit the image of a typical killer, and yet appearances hid a much darker truth. But their phones told a chilling story. In Scarlett's messages were detailed fantasies about killing, dismembering, and torturing victims. She idolized serial killers like Jeffrey Dahmer and dreamed of committing what she called the perfect murder. Eddie, meanwhile, admitted he was fascinated by violence, but claimed he went along with Scarlett because of her influence, as if powerless to resist. The two had bonded over this shared obsession, feeding each other's darkest thoughts until those fantasies became an intoxicating reality. Together, they pushed each other further into depravity, crossing a line most people never imagine. What began as teenage chatter online had escalated into one of the most shocking child-perpetrated murders in modern British history, shaking the nation's faith in its own youth. police seized the suspects' phones and discovered thousands of disturbing messages. Scarlett had written about stabbing people, about her desire to watch someone die, and about making Brianna the target. She wrote chilling lines like, "We need to kill her." The pair exchanged instructions on how to carry out the attack. Scarlett bought a knife online, describing it as perfect. They even set a date. This wasn't a moment of impulse. It was premeditation, meticulously planned by two teenagers who should have been worrying about homework, not murder. In interviews, Scarlett appeared cold and detached, almost proud of her plan. Eddie, on the other hand, appeared frightened, trying to shift blame onto Scarlett, but the evidence was clear. Both had participated in luring Brianna to her death. The digital trail became the backbone of the case, proof that this wasn't an accident or a fight gone wrong, but a calculated execution. The trial began in November 2023 at Manchester Crown Court. Because the killers were minors, their identities were initially hidden. The courtroom was packed with journalists, activists, and Brianna's grieving family. The prosecution painted a disturbing picture. Scarlett was the driving force, fascinated by serial killers, while Eddie enabled her, joining in the attack. They argued that together, they had carried out a frenzied and sadistic murder. The defense, however, tried to draw distinctions. Scarlett's lawyers argued she was troubled and influenced by violent fantasies, but didn't fully understand her actions. Eddie's lawyers claimed he was manipulated, a follower dragged into something he didn't want to do. But as the jury listened to the phone records, the planning messages, and the evidence of the stabbing, it became harder to separate them. The question wasn't just who wielded the knife, it was how two children could become so warped that killing a classmate became entertainment. In December 2023, the verdict came. Both teenagers were found guilty of murder. The judge described the crime as one of exceptional brutality, emphasizing how the pair had acted with planning, persistence, and cruelty. He rejected the idea that Eddie was simply a passive follower. In February 2024, sentencing shocked the public. Scarlett Jenkinson was given a minimum of 22 years before parole eligibility. Eddie Ratcliffe was sentenced to 20 years. For offenders so young, these were some of the harshest sentences in recent British history. Their names, once shielded by law, were revealed to the world. No longer faceless children, they were exposed as murderers who had destroyed a family and scarred a community forever. For Brianna's mother, Esther Ghey, the trial was unbearable. She listened to every detail of how her daughter had been targeted, how her killers had laughed and joked about violence. But even in her grief, Esther showed remarkable strength. She spoke publicly about the need for compassion, forgiveness, and, most importantly, change. She didn't want her daughter remembered only as a victim. She wanted her death to spark conversations about youth violence, mental health, and the dangers of online radicalization. Brianna's friends held vigils, decorating parks with pink balloons and flowers. Thousands marched in her memory, holding banners with her name. Her story resonated far beyond Warrington. She became a national symbol of the fight against hatred and cruelty. The murder of Brianna Ghey exposed difficult truths. It highlighted the growing issue of teenagers consuming violent content online, desensitized to suffering and glamorizing killers. It showed how vulnerable young people like Brianna, transgender, open, and trusting, can become easy targets. It also forced the public to confront questions about justice. Can children be held accountable in the same way as adults when they commit crimes so heinous? How do we balance punishment with the chance of rehabilitation? And above all, it reminded society of the human cost of cruelty. Behind every headline is a daughter, a sister, a friend, a life cut short. Brianna Ghey's story is one of lost potential. A 16-year-old girl who loved fashion, makeup, and her friends. A teenager who wanted nothing more than to be herself and to be accepted. But her life was stolen in a way that shocked the world. Two teenagers, consumed by obsession and darkness, took away her future and left a family in grief. Yet Brianna's legacy continues. Her mother fights for safer online spaces. Her friends and supporters keep her memory alive through vigils and campaigns. And her story serves as a warning of what can happen when hatred and violence go unchallenged. She was more than a victim. She was a daughter, a friend, and a girl with dreams. And she deserved so much more. If this case moved you, please like, comment, and subscribe so more people can hear Brianna's story and reflect on the importance of compassion and awareness. Share this video to honor her memory and to remind others, we must